name is Bruce Thompson, and I am the Senator for Bartow, Cherokee, and Cobb, and it's my pleasure this morning to be able to have our future Senator, David Perdue, here. Standing to my left, who will introduce him, is our good friend Tom Graves, who does a great job in what he can do up in Washington. So let's give Tom.
I tell you, I'm so excited to be with you this morning. We started out early, and it's good to come through one of my hometowns. Y'all know I'm a Bartow County Cass High graduate, and it's good to be back home. We're having an exciting day today as we travel across North Georgia. As we go to these last 8 days coming up into this election, I can't emphasize how important it is that we do well and we run through this finish line as far and as fast as we can. So if I'm to do the job that I'm supposed to do in Washington, that I've been elected to do, and that's to push back on this Obama none agenda, and Barry Loudermilk, your rep-elect, is to go up there and do what he's expected to do, and that's less government, less taxes, and more personal responsibility. We need a little help, and we can't do it unless we have David Perdue joining us in Washington, D.C. So if you think about this campaign, it's been a long campaign. I know from the primary through the runoff, but here we are 8 days out, and this is so vitally important for our state and for our nation. So as I think about traveling around with this man who I've known now for several years, I've gotten to know him in a way that I know many of you haven't. You will today. An amazing man who has lived a great life. He's come from simple, humble beginnings, and he's worked hard, and he's achieved much. He's dreamed big. He's achieved the American dream. He's been accompanied by his wife, Bonnie, who's with us today as well for 42 years. There's no greater testament to a family and to a person than his spouse and their time together and their relationship. 2 children, 3 grandchildren, and he's willing to put it all on the line for us here in Georgia to be the voice of all of Georgians. Let me introduce you to you, my good friend, next Senator from Georgia, David.
Tom Graves, I'm telling you, like you said, we've known each other for a while, but I watched him in Washington, and he's fighting the good fight up there. You know, in fact, all of his compatriots from Georgia are fighting the good fight up there. The problem is they're getting blamed for gridlock, right? Well, there's only one source of gridlock in Washington, D.C., and that's Harry Reid. There were 380-something bills that they passed in the House in a bipartisan way. Over 50 of those bills were actually Democratic-sponsored bills. Half of the bills or more were passed with 2/3 majority, and they're stuck on Harry Reid's desk. I think to allow this president to run the country and run our government without Congress through executive order and regulatory mandate. And that's created a mess we've got, guys. However you want to measure this presidency. I was asking Harry, this is weeks ago now, or not asked, I was yelled at basically by Michelle Nunn, said, "You're not running against the president, what's the problem? You're running against me." I said, "No, you're dead wrong. I'm absolutely running against the president and his failed policies, and Harry Reid and his failed policies." However you measure this, we've got a mess. Foreign policy, immigration, education, healthcare, debt, the economy, however you want to measure it, the results are dismal. We have fewer people working in America today than any time since Jimmy Carter was president. This president has actually caused middle-class incomes to fall, and 4 million women have fallen into poverty, guys. People are hurting right here in Georgia. We were in Griffin last Thursday. This guy came up to me, it was a Rotary Club meeting, we were walking out, he comes up, he said, "David, can I talk to you for a minute?" I said, "Sure." He said, "You're going to get to Washington. When you get to Washington, you have got to help me." I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Well, I'm a pastor. I have 2 daughters. They're getting ready to go to college. I'm trying to save for college. Haven't even thought about retirement yet. And our insurance was canceled. I now have gotten insurance through Obamacare, and my rate doubled, over $600 a month it went up." He said, "I can't afford that. I got more money going out than I got coming in. You've got to help me." I hear stories like that all over the state, guys. Whether you're talking bankers or hourly workers or, mayors of cities, it's just incredible. The overreach of this federal government is killing our ability to create jobs in this state. You know, if you look at this president, he's so arrogant that he said, "I'm not on the ballot, but my policies are, every single one in these Senate races," right? And he went beyond that. That wasn't bad enough. Then last week he said, "In Georgia, He called into a radio station in Atlanta and said, "You've got to vote for Michelle Nunn because I need her up here in the Senate to continue to doing my good work." I'm sorry, y'all, 70% of us know we're headed in the wrong direction. That's why you're here today. I'm going to introduce a guy in a minute to tell you how we win this. This is not about a message. It's about machinery. Who's going to get the vote out? Democrats are going to get their vote out. The question is, are we going to get our vote out? Had we done that in 2012, we would absolutely have President Romney and not President Obama. There's just no doubt about it. Right now, we can't be asleep again. This is too critical. Let me show you one reason why. If we win this election and get the Senate, now I don't believe we win the Senate without this seat right here in Georgia, and a lot of other people who agree with that. If we get the Senate majority, guess who is the chairman of the Veterans Affairs Committee? Johnny Isakson. Guess who becomes the chairman of the Senate Arms Committee? Armed Services Committee? John McCain. And it goes on and on and on. I believe you can make some serious corrections if you then get a majority in there. Not only will you pass some of those bills, some of those 300 bills that are stuck, they'll go to the president, and he'll have to define his position. He's either going to veto or put him in law. And I believe that's where the battle should be, not on Harry Reid's desk. I just believe, guys, that we've got to face up to this fact. This president wants Michelle Nunn in the Senate to fight for him. I want to go to the Senate to fight for you. And the decision for your neighbors, it's not about you. It's about the 650,000 good conservative Republicans who believe like you do, who vote in presidential elections but don't vote in the midterm. They don't vote. We've got to find them. And you say, well, who are they? They're in our neighborhoods. They go to church with us. They have kids with us. I mean, they're all around. We just, it may, some of us in this room might get busy that day and miss it. We just can't afford that this time. The decision, this is the message for your friends. If they like the direction of the country, fine, they got a choice. Vote for Michelle because nothing's going to change. But I believe that if you're as outraged as I am about the size and scope of this government, about the amount of debt they're piling on the backs of our kids and grandkids, and I'm asking you to trust me and stand with me, and let's get this country headed in the direction that gets back to the founding fathers' beliefs, the principles that built this country, this miracle: economic opportunity, fiscal responsibility, limited government, and individual liberty. All of those are in jeopardy. And we've got to change the direction of the country. I'm going to introduce Alec Pointeman to talk to you about how we win this election. Alec was head of the Republican Party in the state 4 times over the last 25 years, and if we could just get him pumped up a little bit, he'd be fine. So come on up here, Alec.
At the last stop, a gentleman unsolicited walked up to David and said, "I'm voting for you." And he said, "And the reason I'm voting for you is because the future of our country is at stake." But David's been talking about trusting him and standing with him, and the reality is that he's the candidate running, and what do we do? What is our part of the responsibility about that? And he and Bonnie have gone out here and been involved in this gauge, and a lot of y'all take us where we are, but now we're in the final throes of it. And there are 3 things that we can do, and that's an assumption that it's something you can take ownership of yourself and the network of people you got. And the first thing is that there are absentee ballots that are out there that have not been returned. People have requested absentee ballots in this county and not been returned. And by the way, we're following up, calling them, asking them to get them back in. But there are people that we want to get the absentee ballots back in. Okay? Absentee ballots, we do well in that process. Let's get them in. The second thing is early voting is going on. Who on here has voted early? Pretty good. Not as many as we need to have. Okay? I want to make sure that you vote early. My best story about that is I have a doctor friend who said, "I like to vote on election day." He's an orthopedic surgeon. I said, "Well, that's fine. You're trying to tell me if there's a wreck or something like that, if somebody gets a broken bone and you're on the way to vote at 3 o'clock and they call at the hospital, that you're going to go by and vote first and then go to the hospital, or you're going to go to the hospital?" He went and voted early. Okay? Here's the other thing I want you to do. I want each one of y'all to be responsible for yourself, at least, for 10 people to early vote. And most people, that's 5 in the family, okay, or just the folks close around, and it's really only 1 more family, okay? Now the difference is that what I've asked people to do that I've been phoning, I've asked them, when you get your 10, would you text me, phone me, send me an email, let me know you've done it. And I've had some call back in, and of course, the next thing is you ask them to do 10 more. So this is kind of like being in the Baptist church, every time we gather, we do pass the plate, okay? And so do that 10. But anyway, it's a serious thing. Get our people to the vote. The other thing, and that's contagious because we found that people who early vote are willing to ask other people about early voting. People who early vote are also inclined to get people to go to the polls. Then we have, what do you do on election day? You know, it's kind of like, okay, it's all over. We've done all this campaign. We can't do anything. You can keep phoning all the people you know that have an early voter, or all the people you know that are for David Perdue, and you can make sure to get to the polls. One of my business partners who claimed he had early voted, on 5 o'clock on runoff day, was on the phone with me, and I said, did you vote? And he said, no, I hadn't voted. And I said, well, I'm not going to discuss any business with you. Get your wife and children to go vote. He called me back in about 45 minutes. He sent me a photograph on the iPhone of a little sticker, okay? He went and voted. That was 4 votes. Think about it. 4 votes in the rural place that I live, scattered all over the country. You can't kill people to keep on voting until 7 o'clock. And the other thing is that often we do this. Don't go to the polls by yourself. Take somebody else with you. There's no reason not to do that. It's somebody at your place of business or church where you drink coffee, they can go with you and go vote. So don't be riding around by yourself, and don't give up in regard to that, because what we want to do is we want to win this election now. We don't know what for. We don't want any runoff. We want to put this to bed. David's been standing up for us, and now we need to stand up for him. It is your responsibility, and do that, and then be a person who recruits other people. Don't let it simply be, I heard some comment from this guy, and I decided I'd do this. See how many people you can get. If we do that, we'll be victorious. Thank you very much.
Alec, if I could add, people could probably leave here and go vote on the way to wherever they're going.
That'd be a good thing to do.
Would you be happy with that?
That'd be certainly fine.
All right, well, we'll wrap it up here. I know David's going to spend a few minutes here and say hello, take some pictures, but thank you again for coming out and joining and being a part of this great election cycle.